tough and they're really rough and nothing's working, but there's something inside of you that says, I just have to follow that because you don't know who you're going to meet.
Welcome to the Binge on Self-Love podcast. My name is Anna, but you can call me Anshi, and thank you so much for tuning in. Binge on Self-Love podcast is about navigating binge eating disorder struggles, disordered eating, and negative body image. Although I share my personal experience with having a negative body image, eating disorders, and I do uncover bits of my personal story, this podcast is not as much about me as it is about you. Beautiful human beings who struggle, who fight, who grow, and who evolve every single day. This podcast is for anyone who wants to feel supported on their recovery journey and simply for anyone who's trying to improve their relationship with themselves. I believe together we can turn something so negative, such as binge eating, into something more positive and hopefully go from binging on food and self-hatred to binging on self-love. Subscribe to the Binge on Self-Love podcast on your favorite platform and tune in every Tuesday for a new episode.
But there's something inside of you that says, I just have to follow that because you don't know who you're going to meet.
Disclaimer: Binge on Self-Love podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It doesn't provide professional medical advice and it is not a substitute for diagnosis or treatment. In this podcast, we cover the topic of eating disorders, so if you find this topic triggering, it may be better for you not to listen to this podcast. Always make sure to put your mental health first. Hello everyone, my name is Anna, but you can call me Anchi. You're listening to the Binge on Self-Love podcast, and I'll be your host. Happy Tuesday or any other day of the week that you tune into this podcast. I hope you're doing well. If you're new here, Binge on Self-Love is a podcast for everyone who's on a journey to self-acceptance, to self-love. It's for everyone who has or had a negative body image, who struggled with disordered eating or with an eating disorder, and simply for everyone who's trying to evolve their relationship with themselves. So if that's your first time listening to this podcast and you can relate to some of the topics that I've mentioned, then this podcast is for you. And if you've listened to the Binge on Self-Love podcast before, then welcome back and thank you so much for being here today. Every now and then, I catch myself comparing myself to other people. And it's a natural thing. We all do it. Some people do it less, some people do it more, but we all do it. Throughout the years, I've noticed that I have periods where I compare literally every part of myself and my life with others. And then there are periods where I don't necessarily compare myself to anyone, or at least not consciously. Most often, I would compare my appearance to other people where I'm at career-wise and financially wise, and thirdly, my social status. During those periods when I compare myself to other people, that's usually also when I feel the most unhappy, and comparison only multiplies that feeling. Sometimes I don't even know what came first, whether I'm feeling unhappy because of comparing myself to other people, or I'm comparing myself to other people because I feel unhappy with myself or with something in my life. Either way, comparison can make us feel unhappy, frustrated, and most importantly, like we are not good enough. So I wanted to share with you a few tips today on how to fight comparison and what to do instead. Now, without further ado, let's get into today's episode. There are many areas in which we can compare ourselves to others, and for different areas, different things are going to be helpful in order to reduce or eliminate that urge or need for comparison. Besides the most common areas we compare ourselves to other people, such as looks and appearance, we can compare our jobs, our financial status, our romantic status, our partners, our lifestyle, our assets, our abilities, our achievements, our social status, the number of followers or number of likes, work experience, our style, etc. We can compare literally everything we are and have, and we will always find someone doing better or being better or looking better than us. That's how it is, and that's how it always will be. But you will just as well find people who are doing much worse than you in any area, and that would love to be where you're at right now, or do what you do, or look the way you do. We don't even have to try that hard. We can always find someone to compare ourselves to and feel like we're not good enough and that we need to be more and do more and achieve more. But what we never really know is if that person that we are comparing ourselves to is truly happy. I know it sounds like such a cliche, and it is a cliche, but it is also true. You may wish to have somebody else's looks or achievements or life, but do you really? You don't know what that person has been through, what they're going through right now, or you don't know their feelings, what their relationships are like, etc. What I think we all should learn, instead of comparing ourselves to others, is to learn to be more grateful for what we have and who we are and what we are able to do. And of course, there will be so many areas where we could use some work and where we have some space for growth and for improvement, but that doesn't make you less good or not good enough as you are right now. Now let's finally move to the tips on how to fight comparison, how to be more grateful for what you have and what you do, and stop feeling like you're not good enough because you are good enough. My first tip is to think about whether where you are right now isn't where you wanted to be XYZ months ago. This happens to me so often, and I believe to most of you too. We wish to achieve something, we have a goal, and then when we finally do reach that goal, we are too occupied with another goal that we don't even realize we are exactly where we wanted to be weeks, months, or years ago. There are so many examples. For example, 6 months ago, you were at this job that was draining you, you felt unhappy, you didn't like the people there, you felt stuck, and you wished you had a job with a healthy environment where you would have enough space to evolve and grow and where you would be on good terms with other people. And 6 months later, you finally have that dream job. But you don't even realize and appreciate it enough because you are already too focused on what's the next goal. For example, you met with person A and that person is working at your dream job, dream position job, and you're not there yet. So you start comparing yourself to that person and you start focusing on reaching that goal. So you feel like you suck and like you're not good enough, even though 6 months ago you would do anything in life to be where you are right now. Another example is from my personal life. I was struggling with binge eating disorder for years, and back then I wished so much to get better and to recover, and the idea of staying binge-free even for a couple of days seemed like a fantasy to me. Then a few years later, when I was in a recovery and doing so much better, when a binge episode would happen, I would be so upset and I would be questioning everything and thinking like, I'll never get better, I'm such a loser, or whatever. Even though my past self would scream with happiness knowing I've been able to go without a binge episode for so long, longer than just a few days, which back then seemed impossible. My point is, remind yourself more often of your progress, of all the good things that you're trying to do for yourself every day. And there's a chance that some time ago you wished to be literally where you are at right now. And even if you are not yet where you hope to be, that's not a reason to feel like you're not good enough or jump into a conclusion that someone else is doing better and that you're simply doing worse than everybody else. You can take that as an opportunity to reflect on what your goals were, whether they are still valid, whether that still is something you want to pursue. What have you done to achieve those goals, and what worked, what didn't, what you need to do more of, what you need to let go of. All those things can make you feel more appreciative of where you are right now and of all the things that you have. This brings me to point number 2, which is someone else's success or achievement doesn't equal my failure. This is a mindset that I have and that I've had for as long as I can remember. And let me tell you, is the worst mindset you can have. Because every time someone you either like or know or follow achieves something similar to what you are striving for, you immediately start feeling like a failure because you are not there yet. And in my mind, the fact that I'm not there yet means I'm much worse than that person, and that means that I failed. And the worst part is that I envy those people. And even though I am happy for them and I wish them success and I wish them the best, I'm jealous of their success too. I suck, I know, I'm a terrible friend, and I really wish I didn't have that mindset. And it's not that I don't wish other people success or that I'm not able to show them my support and tell them how proud I am. I am. But it's just deep down, I feel like I've failed. Like with everything that we bring awareness to, it gives us an opportunity to work on that and change that. A couple of months ago, I started reminding myself when I got that feeling that I'm lacking behind or that I'm failing because someone else is succeeding, that it's not true. Their success has nothing to do with me. They deserve their success. They worked hard for it. And someone's success doesn't equal my failure. We can all achieve our goals and dreams. We are all on our own paths, going at our own pace. And just because someone else get there first, it doesn't mean we won't get there. Life is not a race, you know? My point number 3 is to not compare your achievements to other people's achievements, because you're always going to find someone or something that's going to take that joy from you. Allow yourself to be happy and feel proud for achieving your goal. No achievement is too small. Maybe you just finished a book that you were postponing for so long. Maybe you just hit a goal of going for a walk 3 times a week. Maybe you finally applied for the job interview. Maybe you just went 2 days without a binge episode. Maybe you just finished your finals. Your achievement is your achievement, and no one is going to take that from you unless you'll start comparing yourself to other people. When I passed my final exams for my master's degree, I felt like the happiest person on the planet. And for once, I felt really proud about myself. But if I went and compared that achievement to someone who just developed a new cure for a disease, or to someone who just got $1 million investment for their new tech startup, I would feel like a worthless idiot. And that's because my achievements make sense in my context. And your achievements make sense in your context, you know? If I were an athlete who's been competing for 10 years, finishing a 5K race would probably have very little to no meaning to me. But if I were someone who some time ago wasn't even able to go for a 10-minute walk, and now I finished a 5K race, well, that would be a hell of a lot of reasons to feel happy and grateful for. That only comes to show that you are worthy of your achievements, and even if they seem small or less significant compared to someone else's, they are not, because it's your journey and not anybody else's journey. When I think about my life, most of the time I feel really happy and grateful for what I have and what I achieved and where I'm at in life. I was a good student. I got my master's degree from one of the top universities in my country. I've been recovering from an eating disorder. I've been in a long, stable relationship. I'm planning my wedding. I'm doing my own podcast. All those things are something I'm really grateful for, something that makes me happy and content under my circumstances. But if I take that and compare it to someone who's living a completely different life from mine, in a completely different environment, of course I'm gonna feel like everything I have achieved is insignificant and lame. If I'm going to compare myself to a famous singer who just performed in front of a sold-out arena and won a Grammy, of course my achievements are going to seem ridiculous compared to theirs. But that's the mistake we do. It's great to get inspired and maybe get a little bit of motivation here and there if you need to. But this is your life. No one in the world is going to do a better job at being you than you. And you deserve to feel proud about your achievements. Hi, it's Anna again. I wanted to jump in and kindly remind you that if you like and enjoy this podcast, if you find any of the things that I cover in this podcast helpful, then please don't hesitate to subscribe to the Binge on Self-Love podcast. It's going to help me spread this podcast among more listeners and together we can raise awareness about topics that are important. You can subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, or any other platform. Thank you so much in advance, and now let's get back into the episode. My next tip on how to deal with comparison is when you catch yourself being envious of someone and thinking, I want this, or I want to be like this, and I want to do this. Ask yourself, do I want it, or do I think I want it? I don't know about you, but sometimes I catch myself thinking, I really wish I could have that, or I really wish I could travel like this person, or I really wish I could do the job that this person is doing, etc. The important question to ask yourself is, do I really want it, or do I think I want it? To give you a better context, I usually feel this way when I spend too much time on social media, and I start to believe that I want something. But a lot of times I only think I want it, or I think I should want it. A great example is a lot of people want to start a business because that's what they saw other people doing, and that's what they think will bring them happiness. But I think once we really know what having a business entails, most of those people would realize that that's not really what they want. In my case, it usually comes down to two things. I either think I want something because I spend too much time seeing other people having it or doing it, or there's something deeper behind it that I really want. If I go back to the example of having a business, let's say that your friend starts an online business selling bracelets. 1 year later, that friend becomes really, really successful and has a strong social media presence. And you start thinking, hey, I want that too. I also want to run my own business and to make all the money. But here's the thing, do you really want it? Do you really want to run your own business? Or do you only like the idea of having it? Or the idea of making a lot of money? Or the idea of being your own boss? These are things that we often confuse. Maybe it's not really the business itself that you want. Maybe you want that time flexibility. Maybe you want that financial independence. Maybe you want to be part of strategy making decisions at work, whatever it may be. So that's why I think asking yourself whether you want something or you only think you want it is important to differentiate between these two things. Tip number 5 is more applicable to the area of comparing our appearance and our bodies to those of other people, and that's changing the narrative about yourself. If you keep comparing yourself to other people and telling yourself that this and this and this is wrong with you, you don't like this and that about yourself, soon you'll only see yourself as these things you don't like about yourself. That's not really a great foundation for any form of self-acceptance or self-love. What I personally found helpful is to completely shift my focus, and rather than trying to convince myself how beautiful I am and how much I love this and this about myself, by the way, there's nothing wrong with that if that works for you, but it just never really worked for me. So instead of trying to convince myself those things, what has worked for me is shifting my focus from my appearance altogether and moving it to other areas. What I'm good at, what my body is capable of, what I am capable of. It helps me to stop perceiving myself just as the visual part, because I'm so much more than that. You are so much more than that. You and your body are just so much more than a number on a scale or a percentage of muscle mass or a big nose or small boobs. Focus on other non-physical areas of yourself. What do you like? What are you good at? What do you enjoy doing? What your friends like about you, etc. You'll soon see that our body and our appearance are just a very small fraction of what makes us us. It's just that for some reason, we as a society decided to put too much focus on it. My 6th and last tip is to keep in mind that everyone feels insecure sometimes. Even the most confident, charismatic, and successful person in the room or in the world still feels insecure about themselves sometimes. It doesn't matter how many people look up to you, how many people acknowledge you. At the end of the day, we all feel similar feelings. We all do the same things. We all have to eat. We all have to sleep. We all have to go to the bathroom. We all feel miserable sometimes. We all cry sometimes. We all feel like shit sometimes. It's just we don't share those things with the world, of course. So keep that in mind the next time you will try to compare yourself to someone thinking they've got it all figured out, and how much you wished you had their life and how much you wished you were like them, because we all feel insecure sometimes. So these were my 6 personal tips that I try to use and remind myself when I find myself in the comparison loop. I hope you found at least some of them helpful. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I really appreciated that you stayed with me till the end of the episode. Don't hesitate to subscribe to the Binge and Selva podcast on your favorite podcasting platform so you don't miss any of the regular episodes and any of the special episodes as well. I'll be back next Tuesday with another episode. Until then, take care and talk to you soon. Bye.
You have to be your biggest fan. And when things are really tough and they're really rough and nothing's working, but there's something inside of you that says, I just have to follow that. Because you don't know who